Good morning.
Morning.
So there we go. So we're going to be looking at lesson number 10 for the Course of Miracles. Just as a review, again, yesterday we talked about these kind of layer on top of each other, right? So it's one after the other after the other. So the first lesson was that question where we asked ourselves that nothing I see in this room means anything. Then the next day we said, I've given everything I see in this room on the street all the meaning that it has to me. So that was kind of the second one, is that the first one it meant nothing, then it was all the meaning. And then the third lesson was this one, I don't understand anything I see. That was the third. And then the fourth lesson was this one, is that these thoughts do not mean anything. These thoughts do not mean anything. Today's lesson is going to tie a little bit into this one. You'll see in a moment. Number 5 was I'm never upset for the reasons that I think. I'm never upset. Like I'm never angry at my dog for the reasons that I think. I'm never angry at this buyer for the reasons that I think. I'm never afraid of going out at night for the reasons that I think, whatever that is. And that was that fifth lesson. Then on Monday, we talked about I'm upset because I see something that is not there. So again, this is all kind of working at challenging the way we think and label things and how it serves us or doesn't. Our seventh lesson was I see only the past. Our eighth lesson was my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Remember with those two, we talked about the fact that you really don't have any thoughts that don't have to go back to the past to get context. So we're always kind of filtering or labeling our thinking with the past. And that's one of the things that we're going to work to manage in a different way through this so that we're open, as we talked about in the very beginning, to miracles in our lives. And then yesterday we talked about I don't understand anything I see. So with yesterday's lesson about I don't understand anything I see in this place, in this room, what happened for people? As you did the exercise, did you have anything occur for you? And it was I see nothing as it is now. That was our lesson yesterday. What did you do as you worked on that lesson?
It did nothing for me, made no sense.
Perfect. That's awesome. Remember we mentioned that this is one of those that is probably going to be exactly that, and that's the perfect place to be. It's a perfect. Now, was it a little unsettling? It is for most of us. It's a little unsettling, and it's the perfect place to be. So, anybody else? Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else? I see nothing as it is now. I do not see this typewriter as it is now. Nothing as it is. I don't understand it. It just doesn't make sense. Perfect. So this is a perfect setup then for number 10. So let's take a look at number 10 for today. And that one goes like this. My thoughts do not mean anything. My thoughts do not mean anything. Now remember back in one of the prior lessons, I think it was number 5 or 6, I had said this ties in with ours today. Number 4, actually lesson number 4. These thoughts do not mean anything. These thoughts, now this is a distinction. The languaging here is my thoughts do not mean anything. My thoughts, not these thoughts, my thoughts. So, let's talk about the distinction in that. It says the idea applies to all the thoughts of which you are aware or become aware in the practice periods. The reason the idea is applicable to all of them is that they are not your real thoughts. We have made this distinction before, and we'll do so again, and that was these thoughts in lesson 4. So you have no basis for comparison as of yet. Remember, the only way we have a basis for comparison is to go to the past. So right now, if we could stay in the present or the future, we have no basis for comparison. When you do, you will have no doubt that what you once believed were your thoughts did not mean anything. This is the second time we've used this kind of idea. The form is only slightly different. This time, the idea is introduced with my thoughts instead of these thoughts. And no link is made overtly with the things around you. The emphasis is now on the lack of reality, reality of what you think you think. We say that one again. So I'm going to go back and so the difference is this time we're saying my thoughts instead of these thoughts, and there's no link is made overtly with the things around you. So remember, it doesn't say in this room, out that window, on this street. So we're not tying it to that. It's just what's here. The emphasis is now on the lack of reality of what you think you think. That's why we're not tying it in anything in your proximity. Now, this aspect of correction process began with the idea that the thoughts of which you are aware are meaningless, outside rather than within, and then stressed their past rather than their present status. Now we're emphasizing that the presence of these quote-unquote thoughts means that you are not thinking. This is merely another way of repeating our earlier statement that your mind is really a blank. To recognize this is to recognize nothingness when you think you see it. Let me say that again. So the line before that said this. This is merely another way of repeating our earlier statement that your mind is really a blank. To recognize this is to recognize nothingness when you think you see it. As such, it is the prerequisite for vision. So now we're going to ask that you close your eyes for this exercise. So this is the second time we've asked you to do the exercise with your eyes closed, and introduce them by repeating the idea for today quite slowly to yourself. So the idea then, so you'd close your eyes and you would say, my thoughts do not mean anything. So that's the beginning of the exercise. So let's just practice that now. You just close your eyes. You can say, my thoughts do not mean anything. My thoughts do not mean anything. My thoughts do not mean anything. So that's the beginning of it. Now, what we're going to ask that you do now with that beginning is add this piece to it. That is, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. This idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. So together then it's, my thoughts do not mean anything. This idea will help to release me from all that I thought I believe. See, the exercises consist, as before, in searching your mind for all of the thoughts that are available to you without selection or judgment. Try to avoid classification of any kind. In fact, if you find it helpful to do so, you might imagine that you are watching an oddly assorted procession going by which has little, if any, personal meaning to you. Like it's a parade of stuff that's just random and no meaning. As each one of these crosses your mind, say, my thoughts about whatever that is does not mean anything. My thoughts around blank does not mean anything. My thoughts around blank does not mean anything. And that's the exercise. As I started out by saying, my thoughts do not mean anything. This idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. And then you'll say, my thought about blank does not mean anything. Whatever comes up for you in your thinking in this exercise. So today's thought can obviously serve for any thought that distresses you at any time. So this is a good takeaway in this one. So this exercise you can use at any point in time of a thought that distresses you. In addition, 5 practice periods are recommended for this one. So 5. Now we've said 2 to 4 a day. This one is that powerful, and we've got the weekend too. So you may choose to take it through the next few days. So 5 of those a day, practice sessions, involving no more than a minute or so of mind searching at each one. It is not recommended that this time period be extended, and it should be reduced to half a minute or less if you experience discomfort. Remember, however, to repeat the idea slowly before applying it specifically, and then also add, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. So there's kind of 3 key takeaways. And so if you're taking notes, you may want to write this down. So my thoughts do not mean anything is the beginning of the lesson. Eyes closed, just let whatever goes by come by. And then you would say, my thought about whatever that is does not mean anything. My thought about this does not mean anything. And then you wrap it up by saying, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. And that's the lesson. Now, again, no more than a minute on that, and then ideally cut it down to half a minute. And if something makes you uncomfortable, jump out. Jump out. The way I've heard this lesson kind of described probably best, and I'm going to go back a slide so you can grab I'll go back to the 3 kind of, here it is. I heard this described best one of the other times I've done this, and it's to say that when you get into this, and when we talk about discomfort, it's kind of like, and it may be for some of you, I don't want to, well, I am going to plant the seed, like stirring the bottom of a pool that's been sitting with a lot of water in it for a long time that's never had much going on. So you start stirring some stuff up. And so if you start stirring some stuff up, just step out, because that's not the intention. This isn't to deal with the stuff. It's just to see if it's there, and then work to manage how you are, because this is about opening it up for our thinking. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, when we talk about the processional, there's a technique that I was taught a couple of years ago about really acting like an observer. And we talked about this a couple days ago as well, and that's how I always envision this. Is like I'm the observer. So like I see myself in whatever it is as if I'm watching from a distance. And there's some really interesting power in that for us individually when we can do that. So that's really where this is leading. So with that, I'm just going to ask if there's any questions on the lesson or anything we've covered this week, or anything else we need to bring to the group.